Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this best of 5 showdown between Papa Palpatine and Sentencia. So this is a series that took place in my Gran Turino Swiss League, which is an offline tournament. Essentially, the players play at their convenience over a period of about 7 or 8 weeks, depending on the size of the tournament and how many people drop out, etc., etc. But if you guys are curious to see the details of the tournament, who's playing in it, the current standings, there's going to be a link in the comment section as well as the description below. But again, be careful clicking that because there will be a spoiler for this current series. And I have to say, this was an absolutely amazing series, and that's why it's getting casted here. Now, as far as the build here for Palpatine, the front line is going to be Chaos Warriors mixed in with Mirror Guard and some Marauders here on the flank. Now, basic Chaos Warriors against High Elves, let's kind of look at this objectively. So, they'll do very well against Rangers. They'll be able to beat basic Spearmen, but against Silver and Guard and above, they might have a little bit of a problem. I've seen a lot of Chaos players start to kind of mix in Chaos Warriors with Great Weapons more as a baseline troop because how good they are against Silver and Guard, Phoenix Guard, white lines, things like that. But the Chaos Warriors here will be very durable. They have silver shields, so if there's missile play, they'll be quite nice. And there is also something to compensate for the lack of AP in the front line. It looks like the Chaos front line is really just kind of designed to hold here rather than do most of the damage. There's a Gorby's Chariot. Gorby's Chariots are really, really good against heavy armor. So these big Gorilla Beast things, oh my god, imagine if Chaos had like Gorbeast packs, like a feral Gorbeast that could just run around. That'd be kind of cool. But nonetheless, great anti-infantry bonus here, and also does have some really good armor piercing. So this thing could cause some pretty good disruption to the High Elf armor, because basic Chaos Warriors and Marauders really are going to struggle here against the front line of Sentencia. He does have triple Phoenix Guard with Larry healing as well, so that's a really, really meaty front line. So he's got Marauders, he's got Warriors, he does have the Mirror Guard. Aside from that, Marauder Horsemasters. Now, of course, these guys are a great hunting tool against many of the Flyers, so against Alariel, and if you do actually overcast Plague of Rust on Phoenix Guard, I believe it puts him down to 40 armor, and from there you can get some really big damage from the Marauder Horsemen on those targets, on dragons, all sorts of good stuff like that. And on top of that, it looks like there is going to be a final transmutation. 2 Exalted Heroes who appear to be on horseback. We do have the Summoners of Rage, which are a pretty good anti-High Elf Cav unit. In the Wood Elf matchup, you bring Zodes usually, so why not bring Dragon Ogres here, right? The Dragon Ogres can beat down Silver Helms, they can deal with Reavers. They trade very well with Dragon Princes, especially since they do magic damage, which circumvents physical resist on a ton of different High Elf units, including Phoenix Guard. And the Chain Lightning will be good against the elite infantry as well. That's pretty much it for this army, and now for the High Elves, it's going to be a defensive Larry build. So Sentencia does have Alariel the Radiant, front line of Phoenix Guard with a single bolt thrower, which I really like. I think that's nice. Just something annoying. It's pretty cheap, so if it gets compromised, it's not a huge deal. But at the very least, it can just poke it, anything elite Chaos brings, like the Gorby's Chariots or the Dragon Ogres here in the back. Double Archer, 1-2. Got some spears on the flanks. The Fireborn lurking in the shadows of the cliff here, and it looks like there's going to be some Reavers on either side with the Narnia lines, just basic Narnia lines, which I really like. Narnia lines are actually quite good against Chaos Warriors, not in like a straight fight because they only have 35 armor and really bad melee defense. But if you stack the Narnia lines, for example, on top of some Spearmen who are having to fight Chaos Warriors or any elite troops, those bad boys will take them to the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That is for sure. So the Bolt Throwers are shooting downtown, going after the Summoners of Rage. Certainly a good target right out of the gates. And the High Elf Archers, what are they going to target? It looks like immediately ripping a couple of shots here into the Warp Chicken, who does take a little bit of a topical shot, but for the most part, he should be able to pull back. And every time I see this map, there's like rocks that periodically fall from this like cliff face here. I always think that there's like, some rock lobbers sitting up there like shooting down at these units. It totally just psychs me out, but the Mirror Guard are going to be the first to engage, and here we do have the Illyrian Reavers getting a freebie charge here on the Marauders, but not so free as the Gorby's Chariots are able to get in there. And those Gorilla Beast things, you can see he's able to sucker punch that Reaver right off his mount there, and actually pretty fast on the pursuit as well. So lost three Reavers versus 1 Chaos Marauder, so probably a better trade for Chaos. Now on the front line, we do have the Mirror Guard fighting against the Phoenix Guard, and it looks like the Plague of Rust has been overcasted here. So the Phoenix Guard are going to be down to 40 armor, but they don't stand alone. The Narnia lines have been pulled in here, which is giving some extra armor piercing against the Mirror Guard. So far, a pretty even fight, and honestly, even with that Plague of Rust, those Phoenix Guard with their high melee defense and physical resist are holding extremely well. Really, really doing the job of, I don't even know what the deities are for the High Elves. Something I got to look into just for a reference here. On the flank, we got some Reavers pushing in, not doing a whole lot. And the Gorby's Chariots are now starting to get down and dirty. So the Narnia lines appear to have taken most of the damage from that engagement. But the Fireborn coming in with a thunderous charge in the front line. But Warp Chicken is there, man. Nice Space Jam. He's able to overcast a Plague of Rust, which means he probably started with, or at least had a ton of Winds of Magic when the fighting started. But that's a really good one. Hits Larry up in the sky, it hits Phoenix Guard, it hits Fireborn. That's like definitely a High Elf player's nightmare. High Elves have really expensive units, so if you get multiple expensive units caught in something like that, you're really going to be paying the troll toll. Now in the backfield, the Fireborn are going to be collapsing backwards towards the Exalted Hero here. That's a good engagement. Exalted Hero is armored, but the bonus versus large from Fireborn certainly won't be bad against those guys. Although now Chaos is getting pretty aggressive here on the flanks. We do have a posturing of Marauder Horsemasters, kind of looking like they want to engage, but Marauder Horsemasters are actually a really good counter against Reavers. They're about the same speed, but their throwing weapons really get through that 40 armor without the shield very, very well. In the front line, though, Chaos is struggling a little bit. Marauders are being pushed back. Mirror Guard, despite the buffs from Warp Chicken and the final transmutation, are still losing that fight against the Phoenix Guard. So really showing the tenacity here of these elite High Elf infantry. Also, the Gorbeast Chariot's being taken down, which is quite painful, but Larry's in a little bit of a predicament here, actually. If these Exalted Heroes are able to work their way through and get on top of Larry, nope, looks like she's able to get up in the sky. I'm not quite sure how. I guess she was amongst her own troops there, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Chaos Warriors on the flanks doing pretty well here against the Spearmen. But in the middle, the Phoenix Guard have been able to decisively win many of their engagements. Here, these Chaos Warriors are just getting annihilated by the Phoenix Guard. These ones are still holding despite so much magic and resources invested in them. And here you can see the Summoners of Rage are going to be forced back for now. But this actually could be the potential turning of the tide here for Chaos, because I feel like High Elves are in a pretty good position right now, honestly. Chicken is super beat up. Summoners of Rage are kind of in the trash can a little bit. But now that Palpatine was able to get the Horsemasters back here and just, dunk on those Reavers, he should be able to easily deal with these other Reavers, which opens up 2 Archers plus a Bolt Thrower. And also, Chaos still does have a pretty good presence here with its Exalted Heroes. Granted, on horseback, they won't be exceptional against Phoenix Guard, and there still are Fireborn here and some scary dudes. But if Larry slips up for even 1 second, she could go down really, really quickly. Larry is not the tankiest of birds here, unless she gets a really nice shot on Warp Chicken. He's actually down to 900 HP. Balance Power is really even at this point, though. We do have the Phoenix Guard, or the Summoners of Rage, coming back in. And Warp Chicken is going to be coming to drumstick these guys, I think. A little bit of a juke there on the entrance. And yeah, really good splash attacks there on Warp Chicken. He's really good for disrupting formations. That's why he's good in so many matchups, like against Dwarves and things like that, just because of the Space Jam jumping attacks he has. So he's trying to juke through. 275 on the HP. Chaos currently about to lose its Lord, it looks like. And Warp Chicken looks like he's not long for this Earth. 275, basically just trying to cause as much disruption as he really can before he goes down. But the Fireborn are pretty good against such characters, and the Warp Chicken has fallen to the High Elf army. Now, as far as the front line goes, some of the Phoenix Guard are broken by the Summoners of Rage. Magic damage and good AP values. With a little bit of support, they can certainly put some serious hurt on Phoenix Guard. And some Chaos Warriors here on the flank are actually winning against some Spearmen. No surprises there, so they should be able to do okay. And it's still a really, really even battle, honestly. And the big problem for Chaos is that these Marauder Horsemasters are very healthy. They still have a ton of ammunition. They could easily kill the Fireborn. They could probably deal with Larry, potentially, and also are a disruption tool for the back line in conjunction with these 2 Exalted Heroes that are still pushing and just fighting here to the bitter end. Yeah, Exalted Heroes, let's look at their stats. 65, 45, 420. They don't have the best AP, but against Larry, it doesn't really matter. And also, each attack will probably kill a Fireborn model, despite, the Fireborn having a ton of armor and physical resist. They hit hard enough that I think they can get away with that. Here comes a charge onto the Spearmen here. Spearmen are a little bit tattered, so this charge certainly will be impactful. And Marauder Horsemasters aren't slouches in melee combat. They do have a charge bonus of 30 and combat stats in the mid-20s, which isn't terrible. Oh, and it looks like, oh man, nice Chain Lightning right there by the Chaos player, able to tear through some of those Phoenix Guard, getting some really nice damage as it kind of exits out the back. Because those Phoenix Guard are pretty much the bane of his existence right now. You can see some of the Exalted Heroes even getting trapped there for just a second. They both lose more or less 15 or 20% of their HP, which definitely hurts pretty bad. But here's the thing. If the Chaos Warriors here are able to get in there, pile in and pin down the Phoenix Guard while the Summoners of Rage kind of rear charge them and cycle charge with fire coming in from Marauder Horsemasters into their backs, that could be something that Chaos could actually get this back. Because currently, it kind of looks like Chaos is in dire straits, right? But you never know. You never know, man. And this should be a bit of fun here. Alario flying over the head. Going to be dropping an Earthblood, a very cost-effective Earthblood, hitting these 2 elite units, which are still really healthy for this point in the game, right? How much do we got? 47 and 64. Pretty good HP pools, and Larry herself is, that bird's got some pecking power. Might as well cycle charge, and it looks like she is going to be getting in there. Balance of power going into the favor of the High Elves here as Larry comes in for the big bird strike, and the Exalted Hero is going to be getting pecked down pretty good here. He's not having a good time. Although Larry's getting worked on too! The Marauder Hunter Javelins. When I was in that cinematic shot, I couldn't see that, but man, those freaking Marauder Horsemasters just gooned Larry. That's all it took. Man, and now suddenly this game looks like it might be Chaos's for the taking. I really, really thought the High Elves were going to get this one. But now the bounce power looking pretty grim bones for them as these Marauder Horsemasters just hard carry this game. I'm really eager to see the value they've gotten. I mean, they've killed a couple Reavers, they killed Larry, probably put some good hurt on some of the Phoenix Guard as well here in the 4th quarter of this game. And Chaos Warriors, of course, will lose against the Phoenix Guard, but they do have a number advantage. Their stats are also quite good from the Chevrons. And you also have to remember, High Elves are stronger when the game begins because of their martial mastery, martial prowess, depending on what unit you're looking at. So at this point in the game, being beat up and damaged, they're going to be losing a ton of melee defense, which actually evens out the battle in the infantry fight quite a bit here. So one Phoenix Guard is broken. It looks like these Summoners of Rage are chasing down that Bolt Thrower. And if we really look around the battlefield, let's see if there's any High Elves coming back. We have some Archers, we have some Spearmen here. I don't know if that's going to be enough. Man, what an amazing first match here in this series. I hope this is a tell of all the other games here. But the Exalted Heroes honestly should be able to finish off these Phoenix Guard with ground support. If they were by themselves, they'd probably lose it. But in that case, they do get broken. Man, what a great game between Palpatine and Sentencia. That was a great match between those two players. And yeah, honestly, I felt like Chaos was going to be in big trouble looking at the builds, because such an elite armored High Elf line, right, with a lack of AP. But in the end, he was able to make it work with his Exalted Heroes and his Marauder Horsemasters getting good picks. Because I think if Larry had survived there and been like maybe avoided the Horsemasters and just kind of like healed up the Phoenix Guard, I think the High Elves might have been able to take that game if she hadn't been speared down there at the end. Really, really close match. Warp Chicken, 2800. I mean, you saw that. He got an overcasted final transmutation on the horses, on the Fireborn, on like 2 Phoenix Guard, and on Larry. That was brutal. 1200, really good. They cost about 800 on horsebacks. That's really not bad. The Chaos Warriors definitely didn't pay for themselves that well. I guess one of them did. Yeah, I would probably switch out these 2 Chaos Warriors with great weapons. That would have made a world of difference against these Phoenix Guard. Because you even have enough shields with Horsemen or Marauders. You can use them to buffer against Skirmishers and Archers and things like that. Gorby's Chariot was a cool inclusion. Granted, it kind of got crumped a little bit. And the Horsemasters, though, look at these guys. 1100, and 1900 there. So pretty decent. Phoenix Guard, yeah, they all did really well for themselves for the most part, even considering they were on the losing end of the battle. Larry did her thing. Fireborn, didn't quite pay for themselves. They kind of got crumped a little bit by that final transmutation as well as a couple other variables. But it was a really good game. Yeah, again, for the Chaos build, just my 2 cents, I would say great weapons. But Palpatine is a Chaos specialist, so he's probably played more games against High Elves than I have, and probably, knows something about this matchup that I don't. So I would definitely say, his build, it's got some teeth. And for the High Elf build, I really liked it. I thought it was cool. Might be a little bit hard to defend double Archer plus Bolt Thrower. Maybe just cut like, 1 Archer and go double Bolt Thrower, and then you have a little bit less to defend. But aside from that, it was a cool build, and, he almost won the game. It was a great scrap. All right, guys, that's it. Let's jump on over to game 2. We'll see you guys in just a second. All right, guys, game 2. It's going to be Palpatine on Bretonnia facing off against the Empire and Sentencia. Volkmar against, it's Mustache on Mustache, man. We got the power stashes coming in from the Bretonians as well as the Sons of Sigmar. So for the Bretonian army here, it's going to be peasant mobs in the front line. Nothing new here. Peasant mobs fighting against the Empire peasants. Granted, the Empire peasants do have spears and a little bit more armor and training perhaps, but should be a fun scrap nonetheless. And you can't really leave home as a Bretonian player without a couple Pox arrows. So here you can see Pox arrows now that they no longer do friendly fire. If you're Demogryph Knights or Questing Knights or fighting Demogryph Knights or anything like that, they're going to be poisoned. You're not going to be poisoned. It is Value City indeed. Up in the sky, we got King Lewin. On the ground, we have a Damsel of Beasts, a Damsel of Life, and it looks like it's going to be triple Questing Knight. And yeah, that's very, very standard. Questing Knights are probably the most cost-effective pick here. You can bring Grail Knights and things like that, but the Empire does have a fair amount of armor on their cavalry. Empire Knights have 110 armor, Demogryphs are 120, so getting the dual purpose out of Questing Knights, also considering how good they are against infantry, I think is better. Here on the flank, we got Knights of the Realm, so 2 of those bad boys and 2 Knights of the Realm over here, I would imagine. Most players, play with synergy, right? Or not synergy, but I'm trying to think of the proper term to describe it. My brain's a little bit fried. I just feasted on a giant kielbasa. But symmetry is what I was looking for, right? So like myself, if I have a build that doesn't look a little bit symmetrical, I kind of get a little bit, annoyed by it. So I kind of just assumed those were Knights of the Realm just to be, have the symmetry with these ones over here. But we got Damsel of Life and a Manticore Summoner. Pretty cool. Good build. And now for the Empire, this is going to be quite cool. We have halberds being used. So halberds did lose their charge defense against all, but they still have the charge defense against large, of course. And I'm curious to see how they'll do. They're very, very weak against Peasant Bowman Fire, but anytime you can see kind of a new build like this, something that's a little bit different, I think it's quite badass for sure. So for Palpatine, he's going to be coming in with the halberds here into the sunset, or actually was it Palpatine? I can't quite remember, but we'll figure it out as this battle goes on. It's going to be halberds in the front. We do have spears in the secondary. It looks like some handgunners and huntsmen here in the back with double Great Cannon. Great Cannons have always been pretty good against Bretonnia. You can definitely pound out those Questing Knights, but my concern for this Empire army, just looking at this, is seeing that there's 2 Empire Knights, or actually 3 in total, having to defend against 4 Questing Knights. I think, or 3 Questing Knights and 4 Knights of the Realm. So this back line is really going to be, heavily defended by halberds, which can't quite keep up with many of those very maneuverable cav units. especially considering he's not like in a box build. In a box, it's much easier for the halberds to defend, but with an open spatial build like this, it might be a little bit tough, but we'll see. I'm very excited to see how this game goes. Halberds, you don't see those guys often. Very, very neat stuff. So Lewin flying, juking those shots. It looks like the Great Cannons are going after the Questing Knights, which I definitely think is the right play. They're a much more impactful unit. They also do cost a couple hundred gold more than the Knights of the Realm. Knights of the Realm, though, do have really good shock damage. Charge bonus of 68 and can really get in there against unbraced spears or rear charge into halberds and really make them pay the troll toll pretty heavily here. So Questing Knights, though, continue to take some fire, and the Bretonnians just kind of doing a bit of a slow push, getting ready to surround this build, envelop them, and try and get some value out of their archers here. So triple peasant pox arrows. I would imagine they'll shoot either the halberds. Yeah, I think you got to kill the silver bullets. So silver bullets are a really hard-hitting unit and can do really good sustained damage over the course of the game if you don't finish them. So I would imagine seeing 2 archers here from the peasant bowmen on top of the pox arrows would probably, or on top of the silver bullets, would be the right play. Lewin is going to be going in, trying to get a pick here on some Empire Knights. 1 attack animation might actually be able to get a couple. Looks like he is able to take out 3 with a single attack animation. Lewin definitely a very manly man here. And the Questing Knight's going to be countercharging, but well played by the Empire player. He's able to pull back the Knights behind the halberds. So now a charge coming in to the unbraced halberds from the Questing Knights there, so catching them in the transition. But if these Questing Knights decide to stay in combat too long, they'll get wrecked by the halberds pretty badly. And here these ones are holding well. A good screen, forcing Lewin to be taking some heavy fire here from the silver bullets, and also the halberds are embraced and ready to party there. Great Cannons appear to have been switched on to King Lewin as well. But now in the backfield, this is where things get a little bit dire. 1 Great Cannon is taken out here. And, the Spearmen are trying their best. Their damage output isn't great. Halberds definitely would do a little bit of a better job fending off these elite Bretonnian cav units. But 1 Great Cannon is offline here. And the other Great Cannon still is in good shape, as we do have a flank engagement going in. Knights of the Realm engaging against Empire Knights with spear support, mind you. But here comes another charge. Really, really heavy focus here from the Bretonnian player, trying to get rid of those Great Cannons, which I certainly do not blame them. On top of that, we do have a Manticore summon coming in from the Bretonnians, able to temporarily shut down the silver bullets here. But, oh, what is this? Oh, is that going to be a banishment? Oh, a Volkmar banishment. Oh, but it kind of goes into the Empire Knights as well, but still sending a message. That is for sure. So, no surprises here. The Bretonnian front line completely decimated by the Empire front line, which, peasants against spearmen and halberds, of course, you guys know how that's going to go. And Lewin getting in very aggressively, going after Volkmar the Grim. And Lewin is a great counter. Volkmar pretty much loses to any character like Lewin. It could be, a Franz type character, it could be Lewin, it could be Kolek. He's not very good at fighting characters with mass, and you can see that being reflected here in this battle, as he's getting punished pretty good-like. Over here we do have Knights of the Realm finishing off the Great Cannon. So 1 Great Cannon is completely down for the count. It looks like pretty much all the Empire range tools are in dire straits. Silver bullets here are being punished as well. And this is kind of the scary thing about this halberd-based build, right? Is all of these different halberds are going to be getting popped pretty good by the peasant archers. Though peasant archers are at about half ammunition. Burning Head coming down here, and not a bad cast, but it hits Questing Knights and peasant mobs mostly, so probably not going to accrue too much value. Burning Heads definitely should be getting used on the peasant archers. That will get you much more value in my opinion. So King Lewin going fisticuffs here with Volkmar the Grim. He is Klon doing some good old battle here, and you can see Volkmar the Grim is going to be on the retreat. However, there's a metric shit ton of halberds here, and if King Lewin overstays his welcome, he's going to be taking some big damage. So I think that's why we do have the countercharge coming in from Volkmar, just to try and pin in Lewin. Not that Volkmar is going to do the damage. Oh, look at the fireball coming in from the Bright Wizard as well. You know what? Lewin's in a little bit of trouble, man. And if the peasants run out of ammo and there's still enough halberds left on the battlefield, it could be a little bit of a precarious situation for what's left of the very, very tattered Bretonnian Knights. We saw over the course of the game, the Bretonnian Knights took really risky engagements just to shut down the cannons at the cost of most of their models and health. But, well, I suppose we'll find out as this game progresses if it was worth it. So here are the Bretonnian Knights riding down the remnants of this great cannon crew. Definitely very smart, because if that thing stabilizes, that's going to suck pretty bad for the for Lewin especially, right? He'll be having a juke nonstop and will, of course, become the prey. But now the Sons of Sigmar are moving forward. Here we have some Empire Knights taking a torrent of fire as they move up, and they have shields and armor, so they'll be okay against that, but there's still some Questing Knights back here, and Lewin, of course, is still healing himself with the Blessing of the Lady. But very, very close game here, man. Balance of power a little bit skewed here, but for the most part, I think either player could take this game. The Peasant Archers, of course, are really, really doing some solid damage, and Lewin is a scary character. Like, in late game situations like this, with his cycle charging and his ability to heal, he becomes very, very tough to deal with in these scrappy battles, especially if you don't have, like, great burst damage. Much like Orion, for example. But the Empire isn't without burst damage. We have silver bullets here, we have Huntsmen, and they are putting some good fire into King Lewin, who has responded by activating the Lion's Shield, which pretty much makes him impervious against silver bullets, because you get 44% magic resist and 44% missile. Nice little burning head right there, but it looks like the Empire was able to dodge that, or excuse me, the Bretonnians. And banishment attempts coming in as well from Volkmar the Grim. Going to be eviscerating some peasants. Really sending a message, sending those guys back to their farm. Talk about overkill, but you know, you got to do what you got to do, man. Got to do what you got to do. But again, I would have liked to have seen that banishment on top of the peasant bowman. We'll see if it's something that comes back to bite him here in the late game. Volkmar the Grim falling back behind his halberds. Halberds are moving up to do some glorious battle here, and man, they're getting peppered real good though. The poison, they're obviously going to be quite fatigued here, and you know, the double damsel beatdown squad. You don't need much AP or, you know, raw combat stats to get through halberds here, and the damsels are really going deep and taking out those halberds. Poor guys. Back up in the sky, Lewin has gotten back his bearings here. He's going to be flying, looking for his next prey here. I'm not quite sure. Maybe going after Volkmar once again. Nice play there with Lewin, picking off the Empire Knights, which does buy a little bit of time. If the halberds do have to chase peasant bowmen, it's not going to be great for them, especially if they're poisoned. Their speed is freaking 23, and man, they're getting peppered. So much damage coming in there. Here on the flanks, silver bullets shooting up in the sky. King Lewin does get away with Foe Seeker, which helps in the late game, and of course it does give you vigor as well. So believe it or not, Lewin is only winded at this point in the game. He's actually active now after the Foe Seeker. Talk about some good value. Volkmar the Grim, of course, is tired, but you know, fatigue means nothing to Volkmar and his powerful mustache. He, of course, is unbreakable, but it looks like the Empire is slowly pulling ahead in this game. I think Papa Palpatine's in a little bit of trouble as King Lewin's getting beaten up, and there's a full health unit of halberds back here. There's 63 here. Huntsmen are still alive, and there's not really much that the Bretonnians have now that they're about to run out of ammo that can contest that, right? I mean, it's basically going to be King Lewin versus the world, and even if, like, the entire Empire army more or less died, you'd still have to deal with 90 halberds, right? And Lewin is, you know, he's still healing, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't think he'd be able to beat those halberds here. And Volkmar the Grim is still going ham as well. And, you know, with how beat up Lewin is at this point, you know, I always get the mustache guys confused. With how damaged he is at this point, I don't know if there's any witchcraft he could do to come back here. I don't know. We'll see. But King Lewin is on the run, man. So Volkmar the Grim rolling his way back into the fight. Definitely a very solid tool against the damsels here. The damsels, of course, are both foot characters and lightly armored, which is pretty much what Volkmar the Grim lives for. Nice fireball attempt from the Bright Wizard, but was very expertly juked there by the Bretonnian player. King Lewin going back and forth, but as the ammunition starts to run sparse for Bretonnia, and the Empire has a ton of halberds and still some huntsmen left, I think that's going to be spelling doom for the forces of the Bretonnians. Army losses kicking in. Farewell, sweet king. That's going to be game 2 down. There you have it, guys. Sentencia is on the board. We've got a 1-1 series. Always a good way to start off, man. Whenever there's a best of 5, it's just like so hyped when the games go back and forth like this. But yeah, man, I was not expecting that halberd build to work. I thought it might, I thought it might run out of steam. You know, I thought the peasant archers would be a little bit too effective there. But, you know, what ended up happening is many of the Bretonnian knights had to really overextend to shut down the cannons. And they took some heavy losses, which kind of helped the Empire, you know, get there in the late game. But yeah, it was really, really good. Like, for example, if there had been like a full health unit of Knights of the Realm in the late game, cycle charging halberds that were unbraced, they can destroy them really, really quickly. And that's kind of the weakness of halberds. But man, what a badass build. Really, really cool stuff. Like, it's like a pike and shot, right? You have the halberds, you have the cannons, you sit back, you use your handgunners. Like, it's so metal. Really, really fun stuff. And yeah, the Bretonnian build was good too. A little bit different probably than, I'm trying to think what the really meta build is. Probably just like 4 questing knights with a couple knights errant and maybe just more Bretonnian infantry. Because battle pilgrims and or men-at-arms will actually trade okay with halberds. So maybe just a little bit more there. Who knows? But yeah, this is a really micro-intensive build. And, you know, he didn't do a bad job at all, but it's a lot to manage. So a couple of his knights paid for themselves. The questing knights, not so much. They all kind of got trash canned pretty badly. I suppose they didn't have good engagements to get on, but the cannons did more or less okay. Volkmar, raid boss as always, and, you know, all the little halberds kind of accruing value across the board. Yeah, 700, 700, 700. They all paid for themselves. Except this one, but, you know, he tried his best. Yeah, really, really cool stuff. I love that game, man. All right, guys, on to game 3. Well played to both players. And the series continues. All right, guys, game 3. It's going to be Palpatine here on the Vampire Coast, facing off against the Wood Elves and Sentencia. It's going to be Orion versus Big Boy Noctilus, which I haven't seen Noctilus in quite some time. I feel like he's been on a bit of an exodus here with Luther Harkin and Celostra and some of those other characters kind of stealing his thunder. But you know what? Foot Luther could actually be a really good tech piece against Wood Elves, because on foot, or not Foot Luther, but Foot Noctilus, because he does have the halberd against Orion and Ariel, and he's very hard to kill. But in this case, it is going to be Captain Peglegs himself up on the beastie here. So this is kind of an old school, not even old school, but pre-DLC, pre-twisted in the Twilight build, right? Because we saw this in Faction Wars. Anticity would come in, he'd bring like triple deck gunner, and he would just eviscerate the Wood Elf bows. But the Wood Elves now have a couple other threats, right? They have more rush options with very cheap skirmish cav, and Orion has also become a really, really big thing. He got a buff to his physical resist and can cause some serious disruption, so yeah, quite eager to see this. So yeah, it's deckhand mobs. We got bombers in the secondary, triple deck gunner. My only concern here looking at this is that the deck gunners are a little bit close to the front line. I think having them deeper set makes it much tougher for the Wood Elf bows to sneak up on you, because Swift Shiver Shards would need to be like right where my mouse is more or less to hit them. So if they're further back, you can really utilize their 245 range a little bit better against the Wood Elf archers, but we'll see if he pays the troll toll for it. Depth guard in the back, we got some hounds as well, and Count Noctilus. Very, very cool stuff, man. For the Wood Elves, we got Deepwood Scouts with the Swift Shiver Shards. That's a bit of a tongue twister. Try saying that one fast 3 times. But the Swift Shiver Shards are actually quite good. I mean, all the Deepwood Scouts, like, honestly, you could bring 4 of those and, like, 4 Deepwood Scouts and a couple Way Watchers. Like, all those bow units are very, very good against Vampire Coast. So we got Dryad Rush with Orion coming in with the Branch Wraith. And it looks like in the back, a couple Eternal Guard and Glade Guard flanking here as well. So even though it's kind of a unassuming unit, this is something that makes a huge difference here in this matchup. These guys are cheap. You don't have to get Wild Riders. It allows you to expend your money elsewhere. And yeah, you can see on the far side, we have more Dryads and more Glade Riders as well. So let's get this party started, guys, and have some fun. So the Deepwood Scouts with the Swift Shiver Shards going to be going downtown after the Zombie Part Deck and mobs and getting a little bit of poking damage. Definitely not bad. Gonna want to kill the bombers here, but now just an unholy torrent of fire opening up from coast. And yeah, there's a Gunnery White, there's also Count Noctilus, and man, look how badly those Deepwood Scouts are getting punished there by that coast focus fire, man. But the Dryads are gonna be coming in. You gotta deal with Dryads, and without bombers to really lay into them with the fire damage and that good anti-infantry, the Dryads will tear apart deck and mobs pretty effectively. They're pretty pissed off people. There's also something else here, I don't know. Yeah, Depth Guard I suppose are a good countermeasure. Depth Guard can really massacre Dryads pretty easily in combat, but you gotta watch out. If the Depth Guard overextend themselves, they can be getting buttered up pretty good by the all the Deepwood Scouts and the Swift Shiver Shards. Despite their armor, you know, they have a low model count and their HP isn't very good. So where are the Wood Elf Cavalry? There's got to be some coming. I think on the flank here, they're creeping around the back, and that could be really painful. Like, so far, the Deepwood Scouts are taking a fair amount of damage from the deck gunners, and the Wood Elves are, you know, having a bit of a staggered advance. Although I think this is a big mistake. I think trying to snipe Orion like this, though it seems like fun, and seems like it's working, when he gets to his Cloak of Isha, it's just going to be so much harder, and then other things are going to cause problems. I think you need to finish off the archers and the infantry before you focus on Orion. You got to kind of save him for last, which sucks. I mean, there are arguments to go for him here, and it's getting danger close, but now you'll see Orion is going to be very, very tough to finish, assuming the Wood Elves have some healing here, which they do have a Branch Wraith, but... And now in the backfield, here comes the Glade Riders with Spears, charging in there, buttering some bread, and oh man, this is so painful. 500 gold right here, more or less, is going to be killing like 1,400 gold, shutting down all that focus fire. And Orion is, you know, just an absolute raid boss when he gets low in health, which I think is quite cool. He's going to be running back up and over the hill, probably out of range of those guys. And now the back line for the Vampire Coast is more or less compromised here, as the Wood Elves do start to pull ahead a little bit on the bounce of power. I mean, killing all those deck hunters is a huge loss. Nice crossfire right here, coming in from the handguns. Able to blast into those Glade Riders with spears. And now we got some Scurvy Dogs back here. This could be a nice way for the Vampire Coast to potentially get back in this game. If the Scurvy Dogs could get some good value and finish off the Deepwood Scouts, that could be nice, but I don't know if it's going to happen. Orion's nearby. There's some Glade Riders nearby that could potentially help out. And also the Swift Shiver Shards are doing some really, really solid damage. So back at the main coast battle lines, we do have the last of the deck gunners being polished down here. Depth Guard are doing pretty well. You know, obviously these Vampire boys are more than up to the task of massacring some of these very cheap chap infantry. And it's kind of how I used to use Depth Guard back in the day when I played Coast a lot. Just kind of use them as a backline sweeper unit. And they're doing okay. In the late game, they might be able to make a stand on top of Noctilus that could potentially get the Coast back into this one. But even though the bounce power is even, oftentimes Count Noctilus does count as a lot in the bounce of power, and a lot of the Vampire Coast and Undead characters do in general. But it's looking kind of scary for the Vampire Coast. Handguns are shut down, all the deck gunners are dead, Scurvy Dogs are being shut down, there's still a shit ton of archers left on the battlefield. And, you know, Orion, even in a very beat-up state, Noctilus is really terrible at one-on-one combat. Like, his attack animations almost never hit. He's really good at shooting and terror-routing blobs, and is good versus, like, bricks of infantry with his Colossus and melee. But I found that even a character like Orion with, like, 1,000 HP could probably take down full health Noctilus here. So I think that's a little bit concerning. And if we look, what does Vampire Coast have left? They got their Depth Guard. They have a Gunnery White, too. Gunnery White plus Noctilus might be able to cause some problems. That might be something. The Gunnery White does have some really nice pounding shots, But they're going to need some burst damage. Although Depth Guard will also do very well versus Orion. They have 71 weapon strength and really can cut through Orion's HP very, very quickly. So that's something to consider here. So the Depth Guard are going to be pulling over, looking to intercept the Dryads here. But yeah, this is where things start to get really bad for the Depth Guard. There's still ammo. And these Deepwood Scouts, these ones here, and Depth Guard, even though they're armored, they die super quick to any focus fire. A stiff breeze will knock these guys over. And yeah, now they're going to be paying the troll toll pretty bad. Lining up, looking very cool as they make their valiant last stand here. Bounce Fire is actually coming back to the Vampire Coast a little bit, but you guys haven't seen the Wrath of Orion. He's coming for blood. And Focus Fire now being put on top of Count Noctilu's here. A little bit of a charging going in from these Glade Riders to Spears. Where's the Master of the Wild Hunt? It looks like he might have been forgotten over here for a quick moment, but I'm sure he'll be back. And he still has a lot of ammo on his Javelins, too, which could do some good work. Deepwood Scouts are running a little bit sparse on ammo, I suppose. These ones up on the high ground have ammo, but this one and this one here are about out. Now the Dryad's going to be attacking Depth Guard, and, you know, it's a good matchup for the Depth Guard, but if you crumble them, you know, they have very little HP, so 10 HP damage per second against Depth Guard is actually really cost-effective, and the Dryads might be able to keep them crumbling. It's hard to say. They do also have the Hunger, so they do kind of counterbalance that crumbling a little bit when they're in combat here, but yeah, you can see the Hard Knock Life, man. He is getting punished nice and good like. A little Scab Scrape going down from the Gunnery Wight, and it looks like Invocation. If Noctilus maybe has some summons, like, and he's able to run out, yeah, it looks like he did use a gun summon over here, which is pretty good. He goes after the proper unit, so very well played there. The Zombie Pirate Gunnery mob's going to be chasing down the Deepwood Scouts here, and the ones that did have ammo. And now they can rotate on over here and maybe shut down these Deepwood Scouts. A very good attack order given there by the Vampire Coast player. And now they're going to start peppering these guys down. Could this be a wild comeback? It's hard to say, but, you know, everything changes when the horn of the Wild Hunt is sounded once more in the deep. And, yeah, a massive Javelin going right into the height of that Vampire Coast monster right there. And, yeah, he's getting pretty low. 1,300 HP. Balance of Power is going into the favor here. Sentencia, it looks like. It's a very, very close scrap. I don't know, guys. I think Noctilus dying here, though, yeah. You know, I think Orion's going to carry this game. The Gunnery Wight would have to get some pretty good business going. I mean, maybe if the Gunnery Wight times an Alpha Strike with the Zombie Pirate Gunnery mob Focus Fire, Orion, though, getting an Earthblood plus Scroll of Shielding there is going to make it much, much tougher to bring those bad boys down. And the Hounds of Mel Gibson as well are popped right here onto the Dryads. And that does some damage, a friendly fire damage, I suppose. It looks like it did finish off some of the summons. But now Orion's coming for blood, man. Count Noctilus is crumbling. There's a ton of spears. Dryads are immune to psychology, but I can't remember if it's due to their frenzy. I don't think it is. Yeah, the Dryads are just immune to psych, which is really, really nice. And Hawk's Talon going down as well from Orion, just massacres those summons. And now he's coming for final vengeance, man. Here he comes! The Scroll of Shielding is active! Orion going for the kill. 520, negative 38. This bad boy's down for the count. There's no way he's going to kill Orion. Although, this might do some big damage. Wraithstorm coming down. Pops Orion right in the dome piece. More importantly, does some really good AoE damage to the Wood Elf forces, but that's going to be it for the Hard Knock Life, and from here we could probably do a little bit of fast forwarding and say goodnight to the sweet, sweet Gunnery Wight, who honestly did a pretty good job this game. I'm going to be eager to see the value he accrued here, but it looks like he's down for the count. Well played, a valiant defeat indeed. It was a really fun match. So Sentencia is going to be taking the lead here in this series, 2-1, with a very, very solid display of Wood Elf prowess there, advancing on the dreaded Coast Deck Gunner line. But that's something you really do have to respect Orion. He's very, very tricky. I wonder, like, even Luther Harkin isn't great against him. I think you might have to start. Although I suppose if you do have Noctilus and, like, a fair amount of just cheap halberds, you can definitely kind of wear him down. Yeah, but the Deck Gunner is, like, really, that game just came... It wasn't necessarily Orion that ended the game. Like, I think if the Deck Gunners... You saw how badly they beat down Orion in the beginning, right? If they had been protected a little bit longer, they just got killed so quickly and so efficiently by the Glade Riders. They probably could have won the game for Vampire Coast. But in the end, they got compromised quickly, and then from there, the Vampire Coast build kind of fell apart. But it was really well played. 1,200 here, 1,400 on the Gunnery Wight. Very nice. And even though they died early, the Deck Gunners all paid for themselves, really just showing how effective those bad boys can be in this matchup, because they outranged the Wood Elf Archers, which were really nice. Yeah, just needed a little bit more to defend them, and I think that would have done the trick. For Sentencia, I mean, Orion, of course, is a raid boss, as we've all seen. Deepwood Scouts, this is, you know, relatively... There's multiple options you can bring against Coast. Dryka is really good. Orion's really good. There's tons of ways to go about it. But this is one of them, right? Deepwood Scouts with Dryads and cheap harass in the back line. Live long and prosper, man. It works pretty well. So very well played to Palpatine and Sentencia. We'll get this scoreboard updated here in just a hot minute. And I'll see you guys in Game 4. Truly epic series indeed. Alright guys, game 4, it's going to be Palpatine on the Beastmen facing off against the Skaven in Sentencia. So certainly going to be quite interesting. I know I've been talking to a fair amount of Beastmen players or people who like to play Beastmen. There's probably only, 2 or 3 people in the whole community who would say, I'm a Beastmen main, say it loud and proud. But people say that Beastmen do have some teeth against new Skaven. Of course, I haven't been playing too much Beastmen to kind of experiment myself, but I suppose we'll find out here, guys. So it's going to be Palpatine on the Beastmen facing off against Sentencia on the new and improved Skaven. So let's go ahead and take a look at these builds. For the Beastman, it's going to be is he vanguarding? Maybe a little bit of a vanguard, hard to tell, but front line's going to be Goreherds without the shield. So the Goreherds without shields are very much a buzzsaw unit. Really good weapon strength for how cheap they are, and also a good charge bonus and great melee attack. But again, a little bit weak in the leadership department and melee defense, but against Skaven slaves and clan rats, you don't really need to worry. So I love that pick. Ungor Raiders have always been good against Skaven. For the cost, they're excellent at killing Rat Ogres, Hell Pits, Brood Horrors, Mutant Rat Ogres, just really, really good against all those type of targets. A couple Ungor Spears in the back. Morkar the Shadow Gave is hands down the best pick in this matchup, in my opinion. I think Kazrak just gets wrecked by the Molder monsters and Throt, and Morkar is just a really solid presence. He's hard to snipe, which Skaven love to do, and summoning Chaos Spawn is always good. We do also have a Cygor Summoner here, and the Beastmen do have a very aggressive Vanguard here in the back, which appears to be a couple Chaos Warhounds with poison mixed with Centigors, and up on the far side as well. It's going to be pretty much a symmetrical thing. Isn't that funny? Like, go and watch replays. I do the same thing. Like, all my deployments, if it's not symmetrical in my build, it's probably something that holds me back. It, like, bothers me. And I have to redo my build to make sure that, like, okay, I have one Forsaken on this side of the Marauders and one on the other side. If it's, like, 2 and 1, I get, like, irritated. It's so funny. Anyways, for the Skaven, a very unorthodox build, I would say. But nonetheless, really has some rat teeth here. So he's got the Ikit's Zap Zap. And expecting a very heavy Beastman rush, perhaps with Minotaurs and Spawn, he actually goes with triple Stormvermin Halberd, with Warpfire Throwers and Globadiers, and it looks like a Plague Priest mixed in with Lord Skrulk, and a Packmaster on a Brood Horror. This is a pretty interesting Skaven build. I'm really curious to see the efficacy of these Stormvermin Halberds, because I can't remember the last time I've seen somebody actually make them work really well. I always find that Stormvermin Halberds, even when they fight like chaff units like Goreherds or Ungors, they still take a fair amount of damage and are really inefficient at killing them. But if you are facing off against Minotaurs and a bunch of monstrous units, the Stormvermin Halberds could be good. And in theory, right, their 90 armor and high melee defense should make them pretty viable against Beastmen frontline troops. So very, very excited to see this game, guys. Let's get this party started. So Warp Lightning Cannon is going to be shooting, although this map is probably a rough one for the Warp Lightning Cannon, as there are tons of trees here on this map, and you can see probably more than half of the shots from the Ikit's Zap Zap cannon have been hitting the trees there. You can see another one gets hit right there, barely makes contact, killing 2 Goreherds. Definitely a pretty painful feeling. I've been in the situation myself, and it hurts the soul. So the Skaven are advancing outwards a little bit, which I definitely think with Skaven against Beastmen, you need to stay together. If you scatter, Beastmen are so mobile and can really isolate many threats. But here comes the Packmaster running a little bit of interference, and if he takes a little bit of damage, he causes terror, number 1. But number 2, he has self-healing because he is on a Brood Horror mount, so he should be okay. Here on the flank, we do have the big old Skaven slave wall trying to hold off Centigors, and Poison Hound's not going to be going terribly well. And the Warpfire Throwers are now shooting. Let's go ahead and keep an eye on what these guys are going to be roasting here, but definitely could do some huge damage against Goreherds. On the other side, Globadiers making pretty quick work here of the Centigors and pushing back the Chaos Warhound Vanguard, and some Skaven slaves die, but for the most part, those Globadiers are going to be getting a much better trade there, as the Centigors will be taking that poison damage over time. In the backfield, a little Vile Tide going down. Nice play there. And even though it's on Skaven Slaves, might seem a little bit silly, the reason why he's doing that is to create an opening, right? Because if the Skaven Slaves buckle instantly, that means the Warp Lightning Cannon's open and the Warpfire Throwers are open as well. But the Warpfire Throwers seem to be doing pretty well, actually. A very, very cool build here. I love seeing this by Sentencia. The Warpfire Throwers are actually roasting down many of the Goreherds and forcing them back. There's also a Discourage effect, which is good against Frenzy. Now, Butchers of Kalkengard and the Beastmen reserves are moving up, but yeah, all 4 Ungor Raiders are still functional. They're potentially going to be putting some big fire into this Plague Priest here. Oh man, I love seeing the Warpfire Throwers in action. Only 19 kills so far, and this whole flank has collapsed. We'll see if the Skaven are going to be able to react quick enough. And yeah, huge push from the Beastmen here. Butchers of Kalkengard, Poison Hounds, a big onslaught of units, moving into a very, very sensitive part of the Skaven army, and the Halberds are committed elsewhere. There's, I guess, just the Council Guard here, but Warpfire Throwers potentially open. Warp Lightning Cannon's going to be probably shut down temporarily. That is a lot of the Skaven army that is going to be paying the Troll Toll. And here, these are Plague Monk summons, I believe. No, wait, yes, they are summons. I was going to say, I haven't seen someone bring a Plague Monk in quite some time, but yeah, the Ungor Raiders making very quick work of those summons, which I suppose isn't bad. But the Beastmen are pushing in as well with Morkar. Morkar has used his Staff of Corruption to drop it on top of the Poison Wing Globadiers. Oh, but look at that. Beautiful value. Holy shit, that is Value City. That Warp Grinder is hitting everything here. It's hitting the Ungor Spearmen. It's hitting the Centaurs in the back. It looks like it's also hitting those guys. I can't quite tell. I think these Centaurs might have evaded its wrath for now, but that is a really, really good Warp Grinder. But I don't know if it's going to save him, man. That Warp Lightning Cannon going down, the weapons teams are all pretty much gone, Warp Fire Throwers are gone, and the Beastmen still have a lot of the Ungor Raiders left, and without the ranged tools or mobility to compromise them, those Ungor Raiders are just going to massacre pretty much everything. Morker's in really good health as well, and you know, one thing about this Skaven build is there's not much here that's great against Morker. Skrulk, unfortunately for him, does magic damage. Morker has great magic resist. To kill Morker, you need someone like, probably Deathmaster is one of the more efficient choices. Granted, Skrulk is still amazing in this matchup and a really viable pick, but just looking at what's left in the Skaven army, you can see the Bray Herd is swarming in greater numbers. And the Ungor Spearmen and these other troops are also rallying. And yeah, the Skaven are pretty much in mass exodus. Now the Packmaster is going to be making his way back in, the Glorious Rat. Going to be trying to salvage the Plague Furnace here, which is a good choice as well, but Morker waving has his spawn tear apart that Plague Priest, although they just disappear as he looks like Morker like raised his staff and was like, "Be gone, foul spawn, you shall not pass." But yeah, Council Guard, they're cool and all, and definitely pretty good against a lot of what the Beastmen have left, but yeah, 4 Ungor Raiders will easily kill them. I mean, you know, 90 armor is 90 armor, but look at the HP damage they're taking. It's really a lot. And those Ungor Raiders are nowhere close to running out of ammo. And now Skrulk Daddy is being attacked by the Butchers of Falcon However, they better be careful. There are some Council Guard boys here. Honestly, if I were a Beastman, I would probably just disengage with everything and just let the Ungor Raiders kind of pepper them down. However, you know, getting the terror out here on Skrulk, who is immune to Psychology while his Frenzy's active, but once it's not, I believe he can be terror routed. I can't quite remember. I think he can. Nice little attack here from the Brood Horror, the Packmaster, getting in there trying to shut down the Ungor Raiders, who are a little bit blobbed up right now. But nonetheless, the Centaurs and the Minotaurs should be able to kill that Packmaster. Packmasters, or Brood Horror characters in general, have very poor leadership. So if you can surround them even with chaff, that's one of the best ways to deal with them. And Beastmen are one of the few factions that if they break a Brood Horror, they can chase it down with either their Hounds or Centaurs. Whereas there's many factions where if you break a Brood Horror and it runs in the open field, it's going to rally and come back and be an absolute pain in the ass here. So, a final stand for the Skaven. Council Guard have taken a nice little entrenchment here in the trees, but it looks like the Packmaster is taking some topical damage. Not too much right now. It looks like he was able to escape the epicenter of combat, but yeah, now all these little raiders are going to be shooting in. There's Poison Hounds, there's just an overwhelming mass of Beastmen here, the Bray Herd coming in, and you know, I know a lot of people like to make fun of Beastmen, but Beastmen do have a couple matchups which I think they can do well, and you know, it appears Skaven are one of them. And I'm not saying this just based on this anecdotal experience and seeing this. I've seen a ton of replays so far from the Swiss League and my ECL preseason of Beastmen performing very well and actually defeating Skaven with relative efficiency. And I think we got to see that here, which was quite cool. As it doesn't look like the Beastmen are going to be able to do, or the Skaven, which I guess are Beastmen, doesn't look like they're going to be able to do too much. It's really a matter of just wearing down these Council Guard here and finishing off the characters. And that's going to be all she wrote. GG, well played to these two fine players, and that's going to be taking this bad boy to Game 5. The best way to play best of 5, man, or to watch best of 5 is Game 5. So let's go ahead and see what got great value here. Should be interesting. I definitely like the Goreherd front line. I mean, you know, screw shields, right? Most Skaven players are using mortars as well as, you know, Globadiers to kill your infantry and Plague Furnaces. Why bring a shield? Just go balls deep. And it's not like they did terribly well. Usually Skaven are pretty good at kind of dealing with infantry, but I do like that. I think that's cool. Yeah, 400, 300, 200, 800, not bad. Butchers of Kalknar did well. Morker, of course, you know, his spawn are really what did the value for him. But nothing in particular really shined. It was more kind of a unified effort there to break the Skaven. Skrulk always does well. I mean, Skrulk pretty much always gets his gold back with Rod of Corruption and Lieber. But yeah, I think the deciding factor in that game was that flank collapse when the Warp Fire Throwers and the Warp Lightning Cannon went down from that big overload that we saw from Palpatine using the Minotaurs and the Centaurs and Poison Hounds. That was the moment that changed the game. So very well played to Palpatine and Sentencia. And now these bad boys are going to be going to Game 5. We'll see you guys there. It's the final showdown. It's going to be Norska and Palpatine here in Game 5 against the Dwarves and Sentencia. You know, casting these long series, I get a little bit loopy here, but this is a fun one. I'm eager to see this. And most of the tournaments I've been hosting recently, Norska has been losing this matchup. But again, you know, we'll see how this goes. It is a small map, which is certainly not bad for the Norskins because the Dawi artillery isn't going to have as much time to kind of blast you. Yeah, very, very hyped for this one. So for the Dwarves, pretty standard stuff. Longbeards, pretty much value against all Norskin infantry. The only thing they're going to have bad trades against is going to be Marauder champions with great weapons, but It looks like over here it's just basic Marauders, so they should be okay. So it's going to be quad Longbeard backed up by some Grumbling Guard and blasting charges with double Trollhammer Torpedo to kill the big monsters. We do also have a Thunder, a single cannon, and 2 Slayers as well. So very, very cool Dwarf army right there. Now for the Norskins, it looks like here it's going to be Marauders with great weapons, which are always good. I mean, against Miners and Dwarf Warriors, and even against Longbeards, they can put a dent in them, which is good. And we do also have, the Soul Crusher, baby. You guys remember a band? I think it was from like the early 2000s. It was a band called Fear Factory. They had a song called Edge Crusher, and whenever I see the Soul Crusher, like that song plays in my head. The Edge Crusher, if you guys want to go look it up, Edge Crusher by Fear Factory. Anyways, Wulfric the Wanderer, the Shaman Sorcerer Metal, and double Feral Manscore up in the sky, backed up here by Marauder Hunters as well as the Brutes of the Hound. Very, very cool build. You know, Berserkers can actually be pretty functional here, and I like the fact that he brought like one just to kind of, fight Slayers potentially, right? Berserkers trade very, very well against Slayers. I mean, they're basically the same thing, right? For his mantle, he's got Plague of Rust and Searing Doom, and that is it. So let's get this party started, guys, and have some fun. The Norscan hordes advance. I'm going to sip on some Earl Grey hot while the battle begins. Just casting these games back to back, man. No mercy, no respite. It's been a great series, man. Really been enjoying this one. Some cool builds. We got to see like Halberds used earlier. We got to see Beastmen overrunning Skaven. I mean, things like that are always really fun. Now, Soul Crusher is pretty cool against dwarves because he has an ability called Enrage, which gives him 44% ward save. And pretty much every dwarf player and their dog and their mom and their cat and their hamster, pet rat, whatever, is going to be focusing down Soul Crusher with all their ranged assets, right? So having the Enrage, which gives 44% ward save when Trollhammer Torpedoes are slapping the base on this guy, I think is very, very good. So the Dwarven guns are shooting downtown into the Soul Crusher, getting a little bit of work done. And the Soul Crusher is taking it like a champ, still at 8,000 HP. Pretty conservative play here. Definitely good to keep the Soul Crusher back and just eat the cannon shots and avoid the Trollhammer Torpedoes and other assets until you're able to engage with everything here. So here comes the great weapons in the front. The blasting charges will hurt pretty bad, and you can see the Norscan hordes are going to be getting blasted by Trollhammers as well as Ekron's Miners. And looks like he's pulling back here for a second. Maybe trying to dodge something, I'm not quite sure, but a little bit of a mistake in my opinion. Although maybe he wants to get the Brutes of the Hound engaged, not quite sure. The Chariot does lead the charge, and now comes the Marauders and the rest of the army. Wulfric is also going to be the Lord on Chariot, which I think is quite cool. Nice little Searing Doom in the back there, able to tickle the pickle of those Dragonback Slayers. That was actually a really good one. Hit the cannon, actually killed the cannon piece, did some damage to Slayers, and also against the Iron Drake. So the battle is now on, and we'll see if the Norscan armies can penetrate the Dwarven shield wall here, as the Longbeards are holding quite well, but still taking some damage, and the Soul Crusher has now engaged, but this is where things get very ugly. The Rune of Wrath and Ruin is on Soul Crusher, which pretty much is like the Eye of Sauron for dwarves. As soon as a Rune of Wrath and Ruin goes on something, there's going to be some gunfire or pressure coming on that piece, but Soul Crusher is still getting in there and crushing some souls. Able to push back these guns right here, force the Iron Drakes to come back in conjunction with the Manticore dive. And Wulfric is doing some really good damage in the front line as well on his Chariot. He's got good AP on that Chariot and also does have a bonus for his infantry. And Seafang is also something to write home about. So the Feral Manscore is going to be breaking off the back of the battlefield here, as it looks like the Dragonback Slayers are going to be chasing that bad boy down. And here comes a glorious Searing Doom, bombarding here against the Grumbling Guard and some of the Slayers. And Wulfric has penetrated into the back line, though he didn't win the front line. He just kind of pushed past those guys. Though it looks like there is a relative abundance of Norscan troops here that are getting some good value against the Longbeards, starting to wear those guys down. Soul Crusher is broken, Scroll of Shielding, trying to salvage that situation, but it looks like he is going to be running for the hills. And the Shaman Sorcerer and the Manticore and pretty much all the valuable Norscan assets are going to be having to withdraw from their engagements here, as the Dwarves appear to have stabilized their back line with the Grumbling Guard and some of these other units and things like that. And Wulfric still doing his thing, man. Let's go and take a look at Wulfric's value here so far in this game. Let's get a look at that. 800, not bad. But now he's going to be getting punished here by the Trollhammer Torpedoes. Man, that's so much damage coming in from the Jawi Firepower. He's got to get out of there, man. That hurts. But now the Dwarven front line is finally broken with Wulfric's assistance. There are rallying Norscan troops. Brutes of the Hound pushing into the back line. Another nice Searing Doom there, I suppose. Although it kind of looked like it was in the middle of two units and didn't get as much damage as it could have. But Brutes of the Hound kind of forcing the Dwarves back into the center mass of their formation. Definitely going to hurt, and also a little bit of a mistake here as the Trollhammer Torpedoes do overextend, and the Norscan Berserkers should be able to massacre them. So that's a really, really nice grab for Norska. I mean, 15 Iron Drakes is a lot of stopping power, and without, the Iron Drakes, Wulfric and the Manticores and the other Chariot character here, the Shaman Sorcerer, could potentially do some huge damage here in this game. I also really like the Marauder Hunters. I remember seeing Ulrich Rahl use these guys very well in a faction war against dwarves, and they've already gotten 700 gold value back. I feel like they're a very underrated choice. I'd be curious to see a Norscan build that actually used Marauder Hunters with Marauder Champions. So you have like a super tanky, like sustainable front line that won't kill the dwarves quick, but you have like 4 or 5 Marauder Hunters just doing a ton of damage. I think something like that could really catch the dwarves off guard. But this is pretty much a dead even game at this point, guys, and really has been kind of a nice capstone here to this really excellent best of 5 between Palpatine and Sentencia. And apologies if I'm mangling either of your names, but I'm doing my best here. Wulfric's going to be charging into the Longbeards. The Manticore is broken, unfortunately, but for the dwarves, we got a cannon online. We have a Rune Lord, we have Dragonback Slayers, and we do also have Iron Drakes with the Trollhammer Torpedoes. And yeah, Plague of Rust actually active here. Plague of Rust will help these Berserkers cut through them. Yeah, 25 armored Dwarf Warriors. Have fun against the Brutes of the Hound. Yeah, that's going to be a gnarly one. So if we look around the battlefield, see if there's anything routing. It looks like there's a couple units on the edge here. This Manticore is going to be breaking off. Maybe coming back here, which would be super valuable. Nope, looks like that bad boy is going to be breaking off the battlefield. But the Norskins are slowly killing all of the ranged tools. And look at that, a nice Hunter of Champions used on the Rune Lord, and potentially this Shaman Sorcerer, who apparently has pretty good AP values. I don't remember seeing that, but he's able to get a decent little charge, and also tear into the Iron Drakes with the Trollhammer Torpedoes. And the Marauder Hunters are going to be forced into combat, but that's what's cool about Norska. Like, even their Hunters, look at their melee attack. It's 37. So in grindy combat versus like Slayers and things like that, Marauder Hunters are not going to be slouches, especially considering that these Hunters have earned a Chevron. So the cannon probably going to be taken out by the Marauders with great weapons. It looks like the Dwarven cannon crew is running as the Marauder Chariots continue to cycle charge through the Dwarven ranks. And if these Trollhammer Torpedoes are focused down, though the Dwarves do have a pretty respectable force of Slayers and Dwarf Warriors left with the Rune Lord, I don't know, Wulfric and Surtha Shaman Sorcerer here are going to be a big problem. Although, did Wulfric break off the battlefield? Oh, it looks like he might have. Oh man, that's a little bit painful. Is that him over there? No. Man, yeah, it looks like Wulfric broke off. Definitely hurts pretty bad. So Marauder Hunters are now getting in combat. 38 melee attack. I mean, you know, that's really solid, actually. And as far as the gold accrued, 1,000 on these ones. I would imagine the other ones are kind of in a similar ballpark. So Norska does have a mechanic. If you guys are newer to the game, they have a mechanic called the Enrage mechanic, which makes them more durable as the game goes on here. So as they fight, they get leadership, they get physical resist and melee attack. So these guys are currently getting a leadership buff as well as, I believe, a melee attack buff or some physical resist. I can't quite remember the order of things, but oh no, the Shaman Sorcerer's in some trouble. This could cost him the game here. Oh man, he's broken. And the Dwarves pull ahead massively in the balance of power in this game. It looks like Norska might be on death's bed here. Granted, these are Slayers and these are Dwarf Warriors, and a Rune Lord is pretty terrible in combat, and the Shaman Sorcerer might be able to come back, so it might be a little bit deceiving. Granted, there are some Longbeards coming back, and Longbeards do have the old Grumblers effect, so they do have a little bit of an encouragement aura, which will definitely help the other dwarves hold, but it looks like, no, they broke before they got there, which is definitely pretty tough, man. Shaman Sorcerer is broken, potentially stabilizing. It looks like there's some other Marauders running there as well. But the enraged Marauder Hunters are still confident, man, and there's a shit ton of those guys. I don't know if the Rune Lord's going to be able to punch through them. We do also only have 11 Dragonback Slayers here for the Dwarves, but these Longbeards making a valiant stand and really, really laying into these Marauders with great weapons. Excellent fight between these players. And how many do we have left here? 21, it looks like. 29. Oh boy, this is going to be something. Master Rune of Negation going down, going to be giving a fat, epic 44% ward save. Did the Marauder come back? The Marauder or the Shaman Sorcerer? It looks like no, but he's pretty close to potentially rallying here. He's very damaged. But you know what? I think that the basic Marauders, look at that, they've earned more chevrons. One of them went up to 2 chevrons. I don't think they started with any. So if these Marauders break, the game's pretty much over, but there's not much burst damage here. Longbeards and the Rune Lord aren't hard-hitting units by any stretch of the imagination. A couple Slayers chasing off the Marauders with great weapons, which is smart, and oh, the Shaman Sorcerer is back. We'll do a little bit of fast forwarding as he makes his way back to the battlefield. Nice intercept right there by the Marauders, pushing out to intercept the Dwarf Warriors. You don't want to let the Dwarves stack on top of their Lord. That makes it so hard to take them down with the encouragement and all the runic auras and things like that. That was a really, really good intercept. But the Shaman Sorcerer coming back, even though the balance power almost looks point of no return, nice Plague of Rust going down. So the Plague of Rust actually helps break those guys. And a Searing Doom on the Longbeards as well. The hero that Gotham needs is the Shaman Sorcerer, man. And the Marauders are now up to 3 freaking chevrons. No, still 2. And yeah, that Chariot is going to be causing some huge problems. If he cycle charges and doesn't get hit by that Rune Lord, oh my goodness, that is going to be absolutely insane. So 2 Dragonback Slayers, no way they're going to survive. And honestly, guys, I think the Marauder Hunters are going to do this. The Rune Lord, like I said, has not the best damage output. And with the Shaman Sorcerer cycle charging back and forth, which of course is totally in his rights to do because he is engaged here with Marauder Hunters, I think this game is going to be over. And that is the game! Oh my god, what a comeback by Palpatine. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer. The Dwarves were I didn't want to say this before the game, but the dwarves were a little bit close to the back line. You saw a lot of the Norskin stuff routing off the back of the map. Had that game gone the other way, there might have had to be a review of the game to see if they were too close, because there was an ample maneuverability space behind the Dwarven army, which is the corner camping rule, essentially, or line camping. So that was a factor that came into play, but since Papa Palpatine won the game anyways with an amazing scrap, doesn't really matter. We can wash our hands with it. But yeah, and I don't think it was intentional. That's a really small map. You know, it's very easy just to kind of like deploy back in your deployment zone. Which, you know, the back of your deployment zone is like fair play on most maps, right? But on that map, it's like, it's literally right against the back of the map there. So it's a weird situation. I don't think there was any ill intent. It was a super well played game between Palpatine and Sentencia. That whole series was just so damn good. So we'll update the scorecard here. Palpatine wins with a big fat 3-2 there. Man, what a well-played series. Really looking forward to following Palpatine's progress here in the Gran Turino Swiss League, and also Sentencia's. He played a great series of games and brought some really avant-garde, unique builds, which I thought were quite cool. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed that. Let me know what you think of the best of 5 format. It's something I'll probably do like once or twice a week on the channel. I'll grab really good competitive series from the Swiss League and show you guys. And of course, if you guys want to see the current status of the Swiss League, which I'm actually playing in as well, you guys can go down to the comment section and go to the link there. It'll take you to the challenge page and you can see the progress of the tournament overall. But again, very well played to these players. Awesome series. And we will see you guys on the other side. Take care.